Back again, ladies and gentlemen. A few hours later, we got another predictions to go through. This time it's NHL 2019-2020 predictions. And this is the predictions because the season starts October 2nd, which is Wednesday night, with the Capitals and the defending St. Louis, the last two Stanley Cup champions, the Capitals and the Blues, facing off in St. Louis. Gonna be a pretty good game. I'm excited. I definitely cannot wait for hockey to be back on. My second favorite sport behind football to watch professionally, and this should be a pretty good year. Definitely should be a lot of interesting things happening this year, and who knows what's going to happen this year, because every year I always get some predictions wrong. Like every year there's always teams that come out of nowhere and just win. It happens every single year. And could this year be any different? Yeah, it could definitely be different. So, with that being said, I'm going to give you guys my NHL 2019 and 2020 predictions for the season. This will go into playoffs, and I will go over into the Stanley Cup matchup. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about each of these divisions. I'm going to start off in the Western Conference first. I'm going to start off with the Pacific Division. The Pacific Division definitely has some interesting teams and definitely some interesting storylines, especially one of the big ones being Phil Kessel going to Arizona to trade to Pittsburgh. San Jose getting Joe Thornton back for one more year. And definitely some interest. They let a lot of players go this year. Erik Karlsson also is a big thing. That one of the best defenses in hockey with the San Jose Sharks. Erik Karlsson and Brett Burns. Who will finish last? Who will finish first? Let's go over that right now. In the Western Conference, my worst team in the Western Conference will be the Anaheim Ducks. Unfortunately, this is probably the worst team in the one of the worst teams in the National Hockey League. They have a lot of old talent. Their coaching is just not that good. Their goaltending could be okay, but this team just doesn't have a lot of youth, doesn't have a lot of promise this year. I have them going 65 points. Next up is the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings are another team where it just looks like it's just going to be another bad year for them. They are having a lot of albatross contracts, and their team just does not look really good this year. They'll try and be somewhat competitive, but unfortunately this year there'll be another bottom feeder of the Western Conference. I have them at 70 points. Next up is the Vancouver Canucks. This Vancouver Canucks team is continuing to do the right things, but unfortunately still don't have enough talent to make it to the playoffs yet. I think give them another couple of years, and I think this Vancouver Canucks team definitely will have some shot, definitely have some talent. They have some very good young stars like Elias Pettersson and more, but they still are a little bit away. I have them at 84 points. Definitely a good finish, but they were closer to the bottom of the division. Hopefully they'll move a few steps up and make it to sixth place, which I have them at the predictions right now. Then we have the Edmonton Oilers with one of the best players in the league, Connor McDavid. But here's the problem. You have Connor McDavid, but the rest of your team is very mediocre. Your goaltending is definitely a questionable thing, especially with getting Mike Smith from Calgary. I don't know how I like that. He's 42 years old. He's a good goaltender, and he led them to the playoffs. Calgary Flames to one of the top seeds in the Western Conference, but I don't know. I just don't know how this team is going to work. Their goaltending is just bad. Their defense, their goaltending is not bad, but their defense is probably one of the biggest problems. Their defense is pretty bad. I have them at 86 points, just falling shy of the playoff picture. Next up in fourth place, clinching my first playoff spot, the number 4 spot in the Western Pacific Division, is the Phoenix Coyotes. Or Arizona Coyote. But yeah, the Coyotes this year, I think, will finally break through and make another playoff berth. It's about time. They got better on offense. Their talent has gotten better. They have some great pieces in Arizona. And I think they could finally make a playoff run this year. They were so close last year to making a playoff run, but unfortunately, they just struggled really early in the year. They were beyond bad. But, yeah, I have the Arizona Coyotes getting to 96 points and clinching a playoff. Next up is the Calgary Flames. I have them finishing third place. Will they win the division this year? No, they will not. But I still think they have enough good pieces to be a good team, a playoff team, that's for sure. I think that Johnny Hockey is a great player. Johnny Gaudreau is a great player. How is Cam Talbot going to hold up, though? That is one of the big questions. One of the big things that really helped Calgary last year was their defense, especially with helping with Mike Smith being a pretty good goaltender with them. How will Cam Talbot hold up in this spot? He has been in the playoffs before with Edmonton. Will he make it? I think he'll definitely have a good year, but they're really going to have to rely on a lot of their defense to really pick up the pace because Cam Talbot's not the greatest goaltender out there. So next up in second place, I have the San Jose Sharks. The San Jose Sharks are a very strong team, probably the best defense in hockey. I think, especially with Brett Burns and Erik Karlsson, like I mentioned earlier. This is definitely a team, if they want to make a playoff run, this is their last. This is their absolute last chance. They do not have any more chances with this one. Joel Thornton, he is continuing to get older, and unfortunately, he's not going to really do much, not be able to do as much as he has in the past. So a lot of their other talent, like Logan Couture, who's not going to be the captain, they really got to pick up the pace this year. With that being said, I have them at 104 points. Pretty good team. I definitely think they'll finish second in their division. But I think their division winner will be the Vegas Golden Knights. This is the strongest team in the Pacific Division. They have a really strong defense. Really strong goaltending with Marc-Andre Fleury. And their offense, William Karlsson, Matt Pacioretty, and many others, they're just solid all around. This is probably one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And definitely one of the favorites to win the Cup, that's for sure. So I have them at 105 points. I think that this team will probably struggle a little early, but I think that they're probably going to be the champion. And they're probably going to be one of the tougher teams to beat in the Western Conference. I have them at 105 points, clinching the division for the second time in 3 years in their 3 years of existence. Next up, let's go into the Central Division. The Central Division definitely has the teams that can probably have the most change, as has been the past couple of years. Wow, there definitely could be some really big change, especially some teams that were close to playoffs. Now they probably could be a lot worse this year. So my worst team in the Central Division, because I know I think it's next year or the year, I think it's next year or the year after, the Phoenix Coyote or the Arizona Coyotes will move to the Central Division like they were previously. They were in the Central Division before the realignment. So they're going to move back. But this is still in seventh place. I have the Minnesota Wild. This team is so bad. This team does have some good pieces, though. The problem is they're just too injury prone. They have terrible contracts. Their goaltending is the only thing that's really holding this team from being any terrible. But their offense is pretty lackluster. I have them finishing at 78 points. Really not the best team going here. Definitely one of the bottom feeders of the West, and they'll definitely be missing out on the playoffs this year. Next up is the Chicago Blackhawks finishing in sixth place. The Blackhawks did have the number 3 overall pick, and they're definitely getting better talent-wise, but they still have some pieces that are preventing them from making the playoffs and preventing them to make a deep run. I still think they're a year or two away from getting back to the playoffs, but their best years are behind them. I have the Blackhawks going in at 90 points this year. Next up is probably the biggest surprise, I think, and that is the Nashville Predators finishing in 5th place. Yes, I have the Nashville Predators missing the playoffs this year. Why? Losing PK Subban is going to hurt. They do have good defense, but the problem is Pekka Rinne cannot hold the defense on his own. They have some good pieces, but the problem is the Nashville Predators are just going to have a really tough time putting the puck in the back of other opponents' nets this year. Going to have a really tough time. I have them barely missing the playoffs at 94 points. Very close, but unfortunately they will miss the playoffs. Next up is the fourth place finisher in the Central Division, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets, I think, are a strong team, and they have a lot of good talent. They just signed Patrick Laine to a new deal. They have some questions, though. Last year, I know they were in the playoffs, and they left on a whimper to the eventual defending Stanley Cup champions, St. Louis Blues. But this team definitely does have some promise. Could they make a deep run, though? That's too tough to tell. But I think that they're just going to get in above Nashville. I think they just have a bit more talent than Nashville does. So give me the Winnipeg Jets at 95 points. Next up is the third place finisher is the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars made the playoffs last year, and the Dallas Stars are going to continue to do well next year. I think that they're definitely going to be a pretty good team. They added some good talent. They added Joe Pavelski. That's one of the big ones. They added Patrick Marleau. They have some really good talent. They improved. This is definitely a dark horse Stanley Cup contender, but keeping them back, though, are two better teams I think are just a little bit better that have more talent on the defensive side. But I still think that this team is a really, really good team. They will finish with 100 points, evenly. 100 points even. They make the playoffs. We'll see what happens after that, though. We'll see. But they'll definitely be better than what it is last year. Next up is the St. Louis Blues, the defending Stanley Cup champion. I have them finishing in second place. Jordan Binnington is one of the greatest goalies in the league right now. He had a great run. Youngest goalie to win all 16 playoff games for a Stanley Cup champion. And this team just keeps getting better and better. They had some good free agency acquisitions, and they pretty much kept most of the players they had last year. So they definitely will have another great Stanley Cup run in them. If choose so, this is definitely going to be a very interesting team to watch. I have them at 106 points. And finally, my best team in the Western Conference, they will be the number one overall seed in the Western Conference for me, the Colorado Avalanche. This team had the number 4 pick thanks to trade the Senators. They have one of the best blue lines in hockey. Their goaltending is very solid, especially with Phil Grubauer in net. Nathan McKinnon is one of the best, probably the best center, one of the best young centers in the league. Probably McDavid. If you had to put McDavid and McKinnon are probably the top 2 behind Sidney Crosby. This team is loaded. They're stacked. They have so many great players. Their offense is deadly, and their defense can get the job done as well. This is a scary team. This is definitely a dark horse team. Probably one of the – actually, they're not dark horse. They're more of a favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year. And this is a really, really strong team. Barely any weaknesses. And I definitely think this is one of the better teams in the league. And they'll finish number 1 in the Western Conference. Now, let me get a drink real quick. Then we'll go into the Eastern Conference. Okay, so now we're going to get into the Atlantic Division. The Atlantic Division definitely has some good pieces, and I definitely have some good surprises in here too. But for me, I have the worst team, the entire NHL here in 8th place in the Atlantic Division. That is the Ottawa Senators. They are beyond terrible. Everyone on this team is terrible. Goaltending, defense, offense, you name it. This team is terrible. They're not going to go anywhere this year. And why doesn't their owner just sell the team already? He already just doesn't even like owning. He just does it for the tax benefits. He doesn't give a shit about the fans. Their stadium has their stadium in the middle of nowhere. They barely get any people to attend their games anyway, too. So, Ottawa, you're in for a long, long year. I think that I think the Anaheim Ducks and the Ottawa Senators are the 2 worst, the 2 biggest odds to win the Stanley Cup. But Ottawa was triple what Anaheim was. That's how bad it is. I think there was 300 to Anaheim's 100 to 1 and Ottawa's 300 to 1. That tells you how bad they are. 58 points. Not going to do much. They'll get a few wins, but they're going to be one of the worst teams. I wouldn't be surprised if they contend for one of the worst records in history this year. Next up is the Detroit Red Wings. This team is still rebuilding, still trying to just compete, but they still are far too away from really competing back in the playoffs. Their playoff runs in the 90s and 2000s are 25 years in the playoffs. That ended a while ago, and they're probably not going to get back there for at least another 10 to 15, maybe even 25 years. Detroit, 79 points. Going to be a long, long year for the Detroit Red Wings. Next up is a team with some promise. They definitely can make a playoff run, but you never know with this team. The Buffalo Sabres. This team does have promise, and they definitely do have some good pieces around them, but the problem is that this team just it screams inconsistent with me. They have some offensive talent. Jack Eichel's still there, and I just don't know what this team's going to do. I just have them here. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're just a little while away from making something happen. So I have them at 85 points. They'll improve from last year's 76, but they're still far away from making the playoffs. Next up, this is one of my biggest surprises of the year. I have the Boston Bruins here at number 5. I think that this is the most overrated team in the league. They have some good talent here, but I think the problem was they just had one lucky run. In the playoffs last year, the Eastern Conference was extremely unpredictable, especially with Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh, and many other top teams, Washington, all going on the first round. Boston just had an easy run to the finals last year. This year, they're not even going to get to the playoffs. Boston, I think, just has too many concerns in regards to their defense. Tuukka Rask, another time where he can prove he cannot win on his own. He won one with Boston in 2011, but he was behind Tim Thomas. He can't win one on his own. It continues to prove, and I think that they're going to have a huge hangover. Usually what the thing is, the team that loses the Stanley Cup, usually they have a very hard time making it back to the playoffs or even competing the next year. So yeah, I don't have the – I really do not. Yeah, speaking of like Vegas last year, they were upset in the first round. Like usually they make the playoffs, but it's usually more often than not they usually falter. And I think that the Boston Bruins are going to falter this year. Next up, the team that's just barely going to miss the playoffs for the Eastern Conference, and that is the Montreal Canadiens. This team does have Carey Price, who is always one of the best goaltenders in the league. The problem is, how is your offense going to hold up? Because I know you guys do have some good pieces, though. I know you guys have some good trades. But the problem is, what's going to happen with the rest of your – what's going to really happen with the Montreal Canadiens this year? They were so close to making it last year, and I think they're going to be at the same place this year. Just barely missing out, 95 points. They just don't have enough compared to the teams that are going to be above them. They just don't have enough to make the playoffs this year. Sorry. Next up is the third place team, the Florida Panthers. I have the Florida Panthers making the playoffs. They have had a great offseason, acquiring their head coach, Joel Quenneville, from the Chicago Blackhawks, was fired, and they also have Sergei Bobrovsky as goaltender. He's going to be one of the best goaltenders. He's one of the best young goaltenders in the league, and having a new environment for him, they're going to be definitely pressured to make the playoffs. They had a great draft. They have some great captain. Alexander Barkov's always a great captain for them. I have them at 106 points. This team is definitely a playoff team come down. And I think Joe Quenneville is going to try and make Florida a dynasty. They have some young stars to make it far, but I just think that they're going to finish third, though. Next up is the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I know people are thinking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Are like, what? Especially with what happened to Austin Matthews recently with him getting arrested. You don't know if he's going to be a captain or not, but this team is too good not to make the playoffs. So they have John Tavares, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, Frederick Anderson. They have so much talent, it's unreal. This Toronto Maple Leafs team is definitely going to be one of the favorites to go to the Stanley Cup if they can make it past the first round. That's a big question. Can they make it past the first round this year? Because they've made the playoffs recently since Austin Matthews got there, but they've not been able to make it past the first round. This has got to be a change where they make it out of the first round. I have them at 108 points. They'll definitely be a very good team come this year. Then we have my number one overall seed in the Eastern Conference. It's completely obvious if you guys know it. It's the Tampa Bay Lightning. This team is too good not to be the best team in the Eastern Conference again. They were completely embarrassed by the Columbus Blue Jackets last year. Completely embarrassed. And they're going to come into this season pissed off. They have a very good offense with Braden Point, Steven Stamkos. They have Andre Vasilevsky, who is in a big contract year. This team is too good not to make it out and make it a Stanley Cup favorite this year. They got to win the Stanley Cup this year, or else John Cooper's going to be in a lot of shit this year. I have him at 118 points. This is the best team in the league right now until playoffs come, but we'll see what happens. Then we have the Metro Division. Next up with the Metro Division, there are definitely some interesting teams in here. They're definitely going to make some interesting standings, but I think the worst team in the Metro Division is the Philadelphia Flyers. This team, I know they have a new head coach in Alan Vinoué, but this team just does not have the talent that they once had. They lost Wayne Simmons. Claude Giroux is just a former shell of himself, and the Flyers are just – they're just not going to be that good. The rest of their division is just too good compared to the Flyers, who really didn't make any interesting offseason acquisitions. And some talent, but they're still going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I have them at 70 points. Next up is the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yeah, with losing your best goaltender, losing a lot of your free agents that you try to sign the trade deadline. You had one playoff berth last year. You made it out of the one series when finally made it into the second round, but not going to get back for a while. I have the Columbus Blue Jackets finishing with 77 points. This is going to be a rough year for the Blue Jackets. You had your chance last year to make the Stanley Cup final run, but couldn't get past Boston, unfortunately. Next up is the New York Rangers. Kaapo Kakko is the big story with the Rangers. It's going to be playing right away, and how is he going to fare? That's early to tell, but this is going to be, I think, Henrik Lundqvist's final season as a Ranger. Unfortunately, they still have a long way to go from really being a top-tier team. This is going to be a long rebuilding process. They know it, and it's going to take time for them to rebuild. So I have them at 84 points. They're definitely going to be something, but they'll still have a long way to go before they can really be back in the playoffs. Next up is the New York Islanders as my fifth and first playoff team in this division. The New York Islanders with Barry Trotz, they surprised everybody, but the biggest problem is they lost Robin Leonard to the Chicago Blackhawks. That is going to be a big problem. Their defense still is one of the best in the league, and that's going to be the big selling point for the Islanders this year. Their defense is going to have to really hold up. I think they're going to get 96 points. Big problem is, though, how are they going to fare on offense? That's going to be a big concern. Then after that, we got the next playoff team, the Carolina Hurricanes. This team made it all the way last year to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they eventually fell to the Boston Bruins. But this year, they have some great goaltending. Pete Mrazek, they have some great chemistry. This is definitely a team that can make the playoffs again. I have them finishing fourth at 99 points. This is definitely another playoff team. They'll definitely have another chance to make another run this year. Then, one of my biggest surprises this year, the New Jersey Devils. I think this New Jersey Devils, with getting PK Subban, the number one draft pick, and Jack Hughes, this is going to be a stacked team this year. And they're continuing to prove. Corey Schneider is definitely a great goaltender. And this team is just continuing to build talent. They were so close to making it last year, but they were fortunate they were really a bad year this year, but I think that they make the jump this year and get to 100 points in the division. So I have them finishing third. Second place, the Washington Capitals. This is definitely going to be a very strong team, and they have the pieces to definitely make another Stanley Cup run. The problem is though, how will they get past other teams in the playoffs? But the Capitals, you have Alex Ovechkin, you have Nicholas Backstrom, you have Braden Holtby, all great teams. So it's really hard to not let the fact that they're 2 years removed from a Stanley Cup, like they're 2 years removed from a Stanley Cup. It's hard to really doubt that they're going to be. Sorry, but it's really going to be hard to say that they're really going to not make the playoffs this year. The Capitals are too good not to make the playoffs, and they're definitely going to be a contender for a division title. I think that they fall short to one team, and that is going to be the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think the Penguins right now, even though they had lost Phil Kessel, this is a team that is going to come off pissed from last year. They have 100. They're going to win the division this year. I definitely think they'll make the playoffs again. They're going to make the playoffs again. I think this is their 14th year if they make the playoffs again. The Penguins are too good. They have Sidney Crosby. They have Evgeny Malkin, who was coming off a bad year, one of his worst years, but he's going to get better. This team is going to continue to get better. They're Matt Reese another year. They're definitely going to make something happen. That's for sure. So I had them at 110 points, winning the division. I think the Penguins, they did fix a lot of their issues. I think that they're going to have more team chemistry. I'm excited to see how I'm trying to remember who that guy's name. I'm excited to see how the chemistry is going to be, though. I'm trying to remember who they got for the Coyotes for Phil Kessel. Let me see here. Oh yeah, it was. Give me a second here. Hold on. There was one player. I'm trying to remember his name. Or was Alex Galchenyuk? That was the name. I knew it was an Alex something, but I forgot the last name. But how is Alex Galchenyuk going to be for the Penguins? That's really going to be a big test to see how good the chemistry is going to be. But this is definitely going to be a very strong Penguins team, and I think that they're going to improve. Especially the biggest question on them is their defense. They're going to have to improve this year. I definitely think they can, and they're going to have some big moves this year to make. But yeah, give me the Penguins to win the division this year. That being said, let me go into my postseason predictions, which I have right here. For the Eastern Conference, we have Tampa Bay versus the New York Islanders, Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Florida Panthers, Pittsburgh versus the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Capitals versus the New Jersey Devils. Then I have in the Western Conference, Colorado versus the Winnipeg Jets, St. Louis versus Dallas, Vegas versus Arizona, and San Jose versus Calgary. I'm not going to go too much into like the description and everything, but I'm just going to go off and give my quick predictions here. So I have, hold on 1 second. So starting off, we have I'm just going to go over my quick thoughts. Tampa Bay versus New York Islanders. No way the Tampa Bay Lightning gets swept 4 years in a row, lose that, make it out of the first round, get eliminated in the first round. I got Tampa Bay winning 4-1. Toronto versus Florida. I think Florida is in the right direction, but I think the Maple Leafs just have to make some kind of move this year, and they're going to get past the Panthers and make it to the second round. Pittsburgh, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Florida goes to 7. Maybe Toronto is 7 though. Pittsburgh and Carolina. Pittsburgh is just too talented, and the Carolina Hurricanes, even though they had the run last year and they got past the Capitals, this Penguins team seems to be a lot different. Give me the Penguins in 6. Then Washington and New Jersey. I think the Devils, I really like what the Devils are doing, and they definitely do have some very good pieces to make it past the Capitals. I think that he could get it done, especially with their goaltending. He could definitely get past Alistair Bender Ovechkin. This going to 7, but I think New Jersey in 7 would be a huge 7 because the Capitals, other than the one Stanley Cup run a few years ago, last year, they still have some questions. Give me New Jersey in 7. Colorado, Winnipeg. Colorado's just too damn good. Give me Colorado in 5. St. Louis and Dallas, very good competitive series, rematch of last year's 7-game thriller. Give me St. Louis again in 7. Vegas and Arizona. Vegas, too damn good. Arizona does have some good pieces, but they still are a few years away from being a top-tier team. Vegas in 6. San Jose and Calgary. San Jose is just too damn good. Calgary, once again, they always falter in the playoffs. Vegas in 4. 1 second. Then we have the second round, which is going to be the Tampa Bay versus Toronto. Tampa Bay just too damn talented not to make it past Toronto. Toronto, even though they will not make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're still a top-tier team. Tampa Bay in 7. Pittsburgh and New Jersey. Pittsburgh just has more experience in the playoffs compared to the Devils. Pittsburgh in 5. Colorado and St. Louis. I think this is an upset here. I have St. Louis in 7. St. Louis, they could definitely make another playoff run, even though they did really get exhausted with playing all the 16 games in Stanley Cup. They can make another run. St. Louis in 7. Vegas and San Jose. Vegas is two of the best defenses in the league. San Jose, they need to make one more run, though. I got San Jose in 7. Conference Finals, Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. I just like Tampa too much here. As much as I want to pick the Penguins, I think Tampa, they're just bound to make something happen this year. Tampa Bay in 7. And then finally, San Jose and St. Louis, rematch of 2016. I think this year is a little bit different, though. I think that the San Jose Sharks are a very good defensive team. St. Louis can definitely make something happen, but it'll be close. But San Jose in 7. Then I have Tampa Bay and San Jose in the Stanley Cup Finals. And I want this to happen so badly just because I want to see Joe Thornton retire as Stanley Cup champion. I have San Jose in 7 games. So my official prediction right now is San Jose in 7 games over the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup Final. So with that being said, guys, thank you all for joining my stream. Let me know in the comments below what your Stanley Cup predictions are in the comments below. With that being said, guys, see you guys later. Stay awesome. Have a great night. And I'll be live tomorrow after the Steelers-Bengals game. Go Penguins.